Hello and welcome to Art and Self. I'm Cindy Ingram, your host and the founder of Art Class Curator, the Curated Connections Library, and the Art and Self Connection Circle. This is a podcast where we experience the range and depth of what it means to be human, seen through our connections and conversations about works of art. These art conversations are here to show you that art is here for you as a catalyst, a challenger, a coach, and a comfort. Before we get started, take a moment to fill up your lungs with a deep breath. Connect with your body and your mind and your spirit, and get ready to discover what art has to show you. Today on the podcast, we have the amazing Megan Winkler, and she will introduce herself in a bit. But before we get started, I just wanted to tell you a quick story about what happened with the recording of this episode. So I recorded this episode the day before the Art and Self Connection Circle's regular weekly meeting. So we spent this wonderful hour with Megan picking apart this work of art. We ended up at a really cool place that gave us both chills, and you'll get to experience that here in this episode. And then, inspired by our conversation, I brought the same artwork to the Art and Self Connection Circle to have them discuss because it kind of fit in with the theme of the day. And, I was really inspired to continue talking about it. And then when I put it up in that room, they got a completely different interpretation than the one that Megan and I had worked on. And it was fascinating to me. And I was so thrown off by what they were saying because it was really different. So I don't want to spoil it for you. I want you to really hear what me and Megan have to say. And then I'll come back at the end of the episode and tell you what the people in the Art and Self Connection Circle had to say about the artwork. Because really, it kind of blew my mind just a little bit. And it really shows how art changes with whoever's looking at it, that what you bring a lot to the artwork when you get in front of it, that it's not just this one thing that, always has the same meaning, and that can change. And depending on what you notice and what you don't notice, in this case, what you don't notice, it changes everything. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Megan. Hello, I am so excited to welcome Megan Winkler to the podcast. Hello, Megan.
Hello. How are you, Cindy?
I'm doing great. So excited to be with you. I have 4 really awesome works of art. Once I got the 4th one locked in, I was like, yes, these are perfect. So hopefully you like them as much as I do. But before we get started, can you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Absolutely. I am so happy to be here. I seriously woke up so excited about this conversation. This is going to be so much fun. I'm Megan Winkler. I am also known as the Good Business Witch, and I am on a mission to help women build their businesses in a way that really supports them, eliminates burnout. And obviously, as the name implies, I weave a lot of actual magic and intuition and like days of the week energy and all that into my work as well. So it's a really cool experience.
Wonderful. So we'll put links to all your stuff in the show notes. And then by the end of this, you'll know a lot more about what Megan too and what she's all about. So let me put up our art and let you choose one. So give me 1 second while I get this loaded. Okay. And so what I want you to do is look at them, not intellectually, but in your mind, but what really gives you what really draws you in emotionally, what makes you want to talk about it, what makes you captivated.
Okay.
And we'll go from there. Okay. So this one is for our listeners so they know what you're looking at. This is The Nightmare by Henry Fuseli. And then we have Sopa de Europa by Miguel Barcelo. Looking Back by Eric Johansson. And Minotaurus by Nandifa Mintambo.
Wow, these are all so good. Is this Minotaurus at the DMA by chance?
It's not. It's at the High Museum in Atlanta.
Okay, because I feel like I've seen this one before, in person.
Oh.
You know what? I'm so torn between the second and the third one, though.
I'll let you look at them out again.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. Hmm. Let's do this one. I don't know. Like the other one is I love it and it's dark and confusing and I want to like get into it, but I don't know.
This one's
I'm so
calling you in. This is the right
torn.
answer.
Yeah, I'm so torn. Let's do this
Okay.
one though. This will work.
Awesome. This one is Looking Back by Eric Johansson. And yeah, the other one I've actually talked about a lot. So this one I've never gotten to interpret before, so I'm
Oh,
kind of excited you
fantastic.
chose that one so
Yeah.
I like ones that I've never really explored. All right, so let me get this a little bit bigger for us. Okay. All right, so let's start with the description for our listeners. And listeners, please don't look at this while you're driving, but the picture of it will be in the show notes. So, do you want to start the description?
Sure. So, um, it looks very like contemporary to me. I'm not sure like what do we have the date on this one?
We do. I think
Totally
it's
cool.
20, it is contemporary. It's like in the last few years.
Okay.
2020. Yeah,
Oh,
2020.
okay. Yeah. So it has that very like contemporary, like it's happening right now thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it really reminds me of being on some farmland, um, like out in like Ann Arbor, Michigan. I saw
Yeah.
I saw a barn that looked like this, but there is a barn kind of in the background, and in the foreground you see this woman who it looks like she's got her back turned to the wind as she's looking back at this barn. And it's like, as I look at it more, there's like a child over there as well. Maybe there's a tornado coming. Um, but it also looks like there's some kind of spirits in the background. There's a lot of movement
Mm.
in this, a lot.
Yeah. So I would add to the description that it is a photograph. It's kind of hard to tell.
Oh,
It looks
is
like it could
it?
be. Yeah, it looks like it could be a painting,
Yeah.
because the colors are so vibrant, and it has a strong diagonal road that goes through it, and she's on the road. We can't tell exactly if she's walking forward or going back, like what is actually happening with her. But the wind has her hair blowing straight, and then there's trees and stuff around her, but they're blurred.
Mhm.
Um, and then the barn is like the roof, parts of the roof are flying up, and then there's parts of the trees flying around as well. And then it's like a cloudy day with the sun really bright in the top left.
Mhm.
Um,
And it
I
kind of
think we
gets
covered all the
darker in
main.
the bottom right too,
Yeah,
with
yeah,
her shadow and everything.
yeah, and it even gets more clear as you go towards the back. And usually it's the opposite. Like the background is more blurred than the foreground, but the foreground's really blurred.
Hmm.
Although she's not blurred.
Yeah, she really stands out. It's really an interesting image. I love that it's
Yeah.
a photograph too.
Yeah, this artist does a lot of like surreal photography and like different angles to make it look
Yeah.
confusing. I think he probably some of them he has to surely edit because of the way they're done. But this one it's hard to tell exactly. All right, so what do you want to talk about first? What really is drawing you in
Yeah.
here?
I think what's so captivating about this image is it almost has kind of like that Marvel movie
Mm,
superhero-esque movement to it that you can't really tell either if she's running away from something and looking back at it, or if she has come and like turned all the way around and like I don't know, almost like the wind is pushing her toward it. It's just, I don't know, it's this confusion of like movement back and forth
hmm
that I
Yeah,
just
and I'm
love.
noticing too that her something we didn't mention in the description, but her body is in a diagonal line that is opposite from the diagonal line of the road. So like the diagonal line of her body and the diagonal line of the road really like meet and form a lot of like dynamic energy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's confusing because if we were to see a picture of someone walking down the road, their body would be more straight up, or if they were running, they would be kind of leaning forward a little bit, but she's leaning way back. And so
Yeah.
it really is like off-putting. We can't figure out which way is up.
Yeah, yeah. And it kind of has that like that like quick hitting the brakes vibe
Yeah.
to it as well. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's just really, really interesting. And I mean, being from Texas, it's like you kind of get the sense that there is like this big wind or this tornado coming through because there's the
Yeah.
pieces of the barn flying off and the roof is half missing and all the limbs and all that.
Hmm.
But I love how she's also just like in this bright sunlight.
Yeah.
Mm.
One thing I'm noticing too is if you look at her feet,
Hmm.
I think it's a little bit of a clue because in front of her toes, there's like dirt flying up.
Yeah.
And it's like, when we've been watching a lot of baseball lately. My husband's obsessed with baseball, but, and the World Series is about to happen. But, when they slide in the dirt, the dirt flies up. So it's like, her body's going forward, but it's almost like she's trying to keep herself from going forward because it's like
Yeah.
her toes are like planted in the ground and the dirt's flying up. Like
Hmm.
there's that friction. So something's pulling her, maybe pulling her forward, but
Yeah.
she's resisting that
Yeah. And what I
potentially.
find is interesting to that is it looks like in front of the barn, it almost looks like this little boy figure with like a red hat, maybe looking away
Mm,
from her. And I don't know, I'm seeing like a lot of just hard to make out shapes of like maybe there's other people or maybe there's spirits or it's got
hmm.
a very like kind of Southern Gothic feel too, which is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny where you see the boy, I see just little, like bokeh lights, those like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I just kind of see it as light, but
Oh, that's wild.
it's it's hard to make out because that particular part of the photograph is very blurred.
Very much so. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's kind of like, okay, so what is in the direction that she is looking
Hmm.
that like is something that she does not want to go forward toward, you know?
Yeah. What do you think that could
Because
be?
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, there's the thought of like maybe there's a message of domesticity there that maybe it's not a
Mm,
barn, maybe it's a house, you know.
yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. Did you have a thought there?
Yeah, it's interesting because you would think if it were like a tornado or a
Mhm.
storm or something, like that the end of the road looks like that's where you would want to go. It's not
Yeah,
very windy over there. It's sunny. Like everything's more clear. Like,
yeah.
yeah, go there. But she's just like trying to stay into like that vortex, like blurred
Mhm.
energy.
Mhm.
Um,
And that's what struck me and when I was picking it is that it's like there's this big huge force coming from the right hand side of the picture where it's obvious it is heavy enough to throw branches off trees and shingles off
yeah,
roofs. And at the same time, it looks like she's running away from that building
yeah,
and maybe running away from that life.
yeah. That she'd rather be in the chaos
Hmm.
than be there.
Yeah. Well, and the chaos is really interesting sometimes, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can definitely speak to that. Like chaos is more, it's fun sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I love how like her dress could be from any period of time, but then her sandals, like they look like very modern
Hmm.
sandals you get at like DSW or something, right? They're not old fashioned. Because my first thought was when I first looked at it, I was like, oh, this is kind of like a 40s, like a 30s Dust Bowl coming on theme. Um, and it's not.
Okay, something that just popped in my head. I'm going to open
Yeah.
up another browser. Do you know the painting Christina's World?
I don't know. I don't know that I know it from that name.
You
So I might
might.
have
Once
seen
you
it.
see it, you'll be like, oh, yeah, I've seen that before.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So this has a very big Christina's World vibe. She's in
It
the same color
does.
dress. I mean, it's
Yep.
in the Christina's World's pink, and our painting, our photograph, it's like a brighter red. There's a
Yeah.
barn slash house in the background.
Mhm.
Um, but in this one, I just put it up on the screen, so listeners, I'll also link to this too. Um, it looks like that's where she wants to be. So it's like the
Right.
opposite of Christina's World.
Yeah. It's almost like Christina grew up. It was like, you know what? There is more to life than this little prairie.
Yeah, it's like everything I always thought I wanted, I actually don't want anymore.
Yeah, yeah, so much so. Oh my
And
God.
I can ring true to that. Like I worked so hard towards a goal recently, and once I kind of got the goal, I was like, ooh, I don't know that I like it here.
Mhm,
This is not
mhm.
right. And then so I just like threw my whole world into chaos because I didn't know what I actually wanted.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so I can definitely relate to that.
for sure.
It makes me think of women too. It's just like
Hmm, hmm.
we there's this narrative that women, you know, want to get married and have children and like do this thing, and we just kind of follow these steps. And now, I mean, we have more options than we did, but that you know, I know a lot of women, especially when their kids are little, they're like, well, what did I how did I get myself here? Is this what I really
Yeah,
wanted? You know, it's like
yeah,
your life is sort of chaotic at that moment too.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I don't know.
exactly. Well, I'm just kind of thinking about it as well, like in context of, you know, it was released in 2020, so who knows
Hmm.
how long it took, you know, or when he took the photograph. But
Yeah.
you know, it's like especially in the past couple of years, it'd be interesting to see what this photograph, how it gets interpreted, you know, like 50 years down the road. Because right now,
Mm.
you know, we're seeing so many trends of you know, still women are having to make these really hard decisions about, do I stay at my work? Do I just say, you know what, I call it quits and let, you know, our family will be a one income household. I'll go home, take care of the kids because it's expensive. And like, we're all still like living with those effects of the pandemic, right?
Hmm.
I was reading an article this morning about how test scores are way down
Yeah.
for school kids. And it's like, this is the ripple effect. And so, you know, it's like on top of like all of the, you know, tug and pull of being a woman, of I want to have a career and also be a good partner, wife, mother, whatever. Like there's also like a societal pulls as well. And so I find the imagery in this really interesting in that it is so contemporary, and it looks like it could be from any time
Hmm.
in the past like century, honestly. Like
Yeah.
you could almost see her in the 1920s or the 1930s out at her little secluded home on this little dirt path.
Yeah.
It's really
As you
cool.
were talking, it kind of made me think about um, that, like this sort of blurred landscape that's
Hmm.
trying to pass her by could represent like um, the velocity of life. You know, just it's something that we all experienced. The pandemic just was like a stop,
Hmm.
and we kind of got used to that stop, and then now life is back to being like fast paced again, and doing like even this morning I'm like driving, my daughter forgets something and then she does this, and then my other daughter has a 3 day field trip, you know, so it's like things
Yeah.
after things after things.
Yeah.
and I've had a lot of conversations with people that were kind of resisting that. Now it's just like we liked that it was slow and we liked that things were calm, but we also like, well, we still need to give our kids experiences and they still need
Yeah.
to have a life. And what does that mean for me when I just want to slow down, but um, I still have to participate in that
Yeah.
chaos,
Well,
forward
maybe that's
momentum
what
of
it
life.
is, right? Like maybe she's like, she knows she's going to turn into the chaos. But
Hmm.
like maybe she just really actually did nail that sourdough recipe. It's like, dang it, I wasn't quite done with that. Yeah, because no, you make an excellent point. Like it's almost as if we've gotten as close to the pre-pandemic normal, I think, than we have been before.
Hmm.
And people are like, and I mean people like society, like we're forgetting about all the self-care that
Yeah.
we so got into in 2020 and 2021. It's like, oh, now we're going to go do the thing. And, you know, here in the States, it's just such a fast-paced life. And, you know, it's like productivity and high energy and God knows working ourselves to the bone is glamorized and all of that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And it's like, there's definitely, I could definitely see this subject like wanting to fight against that, or knowing that it's inevitable, right? Because there's this huge wind on this one side of this painting, or this I keep calling it a painting. It looks like a painting.
Yeah.
This photograph. And like it's that kind of wistful, like, no, I don't want it to go away, you know?
Yeah. So I noticed in your business over the last year, you've been talking more and more about burnout.
Mhm.
How do you find burnout represented in this artwork?
Oh, that's
I almost said
great.
painting too.
I know. Seriously, if you're not seeing this in a video, you should go look this up. This is gorgeous. um, yeah, burnout. It's just what really strikes me is that there are so many powerful forces in our lives. And it's like you can almost see the wind is, or the movement. I mean, I'm assuming it's a wind, is kind of it's the giant vortex that we can all get caught up in. And, I think this transcends gender. It's like there's always something that we want to get back to. We want to get back to family, or we want to get back to friends, or self-care, or, something, or some passion, right? Like we want to get back to our art or writing. And, but there's all these forces that we can so easily fall in the clutches of, and just kind of get in the big swirl of it all. And there's always that conflict. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, that's one of the things in my work is like, yeah, stress is always going to be there and conflict is always going to be there. And it doesn't have to get to that burnout point, but we do need to recognize and learn how to manage those conflicts between the vortex of the world and the go and the
Hmm.
boss that wants you to work 10 hours instead of 8, or whatever. And then also, what's good for you and your desires in your personal life.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I was really sort of, as you were talking, looking at the artwork, and I'm seeing the tension on her body.
Mhm.
Like her legs are tensed up, trying to hold herself back. She's got, she's falling backwards. I kind of imagine what that must feel like, and that constant flow of work, like the toll it's taking on our body, like the gritting of our teeth and the tensing of our muscles as we're just powering through.
Mhm.
That that has such a physical effect. And I often find when I'm looking at artwork, I did it with the one that I am my conversation with Annette on the podcast last week was I keep finding myself just putting myself into her role and imagining what it would feel like, um, and I want to also so I keep doing that, and it's like really kind of uncomfortable to do that, but I'm finding myself like uh, wanting to tell her to just like let go,
Yeah.
like just stop fighting.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm wondering what would happen if
Yeah.
she would stop fighting.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what's interesting about that is, I agree. Like there is this, you want to say, let go. And I did just notice on her left hand there, it does look like she's wearing a wedding ring.
Oh yeah,
Which is an interesting point. Seriously, like the longer I look at it, there's more
yeah.
things. But what I also was looking at as you were speaking is kind of because we can't see her face, but we can infer the shape of her
Hmm.
profile a little bit, kind of near the top. Like you can see kind of a bit of her forehead. You can kind of imagine like where her chin would be. And I think it's interesting that it's like in this kind of chaos, she doesn't have an identity beyond the fact that she's in this pinkish red dress,
Hmm.
wearing sandals, which are not like renowned for their durability.
Yeah.
And got her wedding ring on. And I think that's part of it is like we as women kind of struggle with, who am I outside of either the home or
Mm-hmm.
the crazy vortex of, you know, work and, um, all of the responsibilities we have too, right? Because there's a big crossover, right? It's so we've got
Yeah.
like a kid that needs to go to soccer practice. That's a responsibility that is gonna take our time and energy that doesn't have to do with work.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I just kind of like, I like how she's kind of leaning into it for like to push against it. And so that's why her feet are dragging, but she's not looking toward the vortex area, the
Yeah.
spinning. And it's interesting. It's like, yeah, what happened if you just didn't fight it?
Yeah. I keep going back and forth because I'm like, well, okay, once I said let go, but then I was like, well, what if letting go gives her what she doesn't want? So
Yeah.
is she resisting something? So I mean, I'm gonna have to do this in an actual real life example. So this kind of thing I thought I wanted,
Mhm.
um, I pushed really hard for it for a long time, and I had a lot of intuition, nudges, signs. I knew well before that I was on the wrong path.
Mhm.
But I was like, no, this is my goal. I can't change that. So it's like I was ignoring a lot of the signs that were telling me early on to change course.
Mhm.
Um, and it wasn't until like everything fell to pieces and then I was burnt out for an entire over at least a year.
Mhm.
Um, did I actually like, oh, start to listen? I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I should have listened to that. I shouldn't have just powered through that. So
Yeah.
part of me is like, is letting go and in her place here, is letting go giving in to this thing that she's resisting and just, or is letting go um moving her closer to what she wanted? Like what is
Yeah.
it good or bad here?
Yeah.
Um and I can't quite figure out what would happen if she lets go.
Yeah. This is interesting because it's kind of the concept of like surrender is not giving up.
Hmm.
Um, like there's a Florence and the Machine lyric that says, "I'm not giving up, I'm just giving in."
Hmm.
And it's like kind of using your story, you know. I'm also seeing kind of a rainbow behind her, almost kind of like a lens flare.
Mm. Oh yeah, I see that.
Yeah, I'm loving this. And it's like if she stopped fighting the wind that's pushing her from behind, then she flies off. Let's just say, like, let's just get imaginative. She flies off like the limbs and the shingles from the building,
Hmm.
but she's going down a path already and she's headed toward the sunlight. So it's kind of like, yeah, if she just surrendered, and not that it's like she's quitting, but she stopped fighting the overwhelming force. Does that mean she ends up in a sunny, beautiful pasture where all is good? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe, maybe
It's
not.
what it feels like. And it
Yeah.
makes me think of, have you read The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer?
No, I
Oh.
need to.
Yeah, it's good. He also wrote
I'll write his
ah,
name down.
the other one's better. The other book's better. What's the other one called? Well, he wrote a book about kind of about meditation and his journey there. But then
Yeah.
Surrender Experiment was a memoir about his life where he just basically decided to say yes to everything, like
Oh
follow
yeah.
every single nudge of the
Yeah.
universe. And
Yeah.
he ended up creating this giant meditation space, and he ended up creating WebMD.
Oh,
Like,
wow. Okay.
I mean, it's just like he's like a millionaire. So like
Yeah.
it's a really crazy story, but that's what it was. He was just like
Wow.
he allowed himself to fully surrender to all of those nudges that he was getting,
Yeah. Oh, that's so
and
cool.
yeah, it was really fascinating. But his other book, gosh, why can't I think of it? Hold on, I'm just gonna look up the name because I really think everybody should read this book.
Yeah.
And once I see the name, I'm gonna be like, oh, of course. Oh, Untethered Soul was the other one.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Very cool.
it's one of those that I just like pick up and read again every now and then. because it's so good. But
Mm.
uh, yeah, so it's part of me is like, okay, then is this the yeah, are is this wind pushing her
Right.
the nudges that of the universe, the nudges of intuition,
Mhm.
and because she's resisting that part of her intuition, that she's staying in this chaotic dark place.
Yeah.
And if she just allowed it to like guide her and lead her through, she would end up in this
Oh,
peaceful, sunny situation.
well, that's the thing is from experience, I can tell you if the universe has some nudges for you and
Hmm.
you ignore them, they get to be real big nudges.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't tell. Yeah, my story is there was two very giant knock me on my ass nudges. Like they
Oh
were
yeah.
like really dramatic.
Yeah.
And that's when I finally started to listen because I was like, oh, okay, I need to pay attention.
Oh yeah.
Um,
After a certain point, the universe gives us really big yeses or really big nos.
yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay. I should listen to that.
Yeah. So that makes me think of your work with the Good Business Witch and how do you what I really love about your work is that you do have an MBA, you have all like um knowledge and information and stuff about it, but you also add this sort of mystical component. How do you combine those two in your work?
Oh my gosh, it's a daily thing, right? It's because I came across a TikTok audio that was like, "Do I believe that witchcraft is just spicy psychology?" I'm like, "Yes, I do." Just like the audio,
I love
and
that.
I
I'm
know,
writing that down.
and yeah, it's so good. And it's like, okay, before we had science as we do now, it was alchemy and it was magic, and so I firmly believe that our intuition and uh setting intentions for things, even casting spells, like we will at some point have the science to say, well, yeah, so when you do that, it shapes this thing in your brain, or there's an electromagnetic magnetic field around us that shifts. Like we just don't have the science to explain it yet. So for me, I love bringing kind of that intuitive, magical, spiritual element into business because we are full humans. And I think that a lot of business coaches, and I have many business coaches, they are like very strategic. They're very like masculine energy. They're very like data
Mhm.
oriented, KPIs, ROIs, all the things, right? All the stuff that like goes into getting an MBA. So it's good to know about that stuff and then kind of start breaking the rules because I work primarily with women, and women, we just do things differently. Like we talk through solutions a lot more than men tend to. Or, we will trust our gut for things outside of work or outside of our business. So it's like, well, how do we do that in our business? So I really work with my clients and encourage them to, do all of the things that make them a productive business owner, including take a nap, go to a yoga class, go on a walk with your dog, pull your paints out. Like these are all business activities, as well as, tracking your daily marketing and sales or posting on social media or meeting with your clients and that sort of thing. So, and I just find that balance between kind of a divine masculine and divine feminine energy in your business is just, it's like the sweet spot. It's amazing.
Yeah, I agree. That's what
Yes.
I have been in that situation with a business coach who I would leave the sessions and everything she was saying, I'm like, oh yeah, this makes perfect sense. And like she gave me all these things and we talked through and I would get to the end of it and I'm like, but I don't want to do any of that.
Yeah.
I was like, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel and but I got into this feeling of like I was doing something wrong because clearly what she recommended would lead to success. It would
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
really good and it would be a way to reach the people I was trying to reach. But I was just like, ooh, it doesn't feel like me. It doesn't feel fun. And, there was so much that just didn't feel right. And
Yeah.
so, but instead of recognizing, now I can see that now. I'm like, oh, yeah, I need to do what feels good to me. At the time, um, it was like I felt not, she didn't shame me, but I was shaming myself for not like
Yeah.
really doing what she recommended.
Yeah.
So
Well, and
that
that's
was,
that's part of our society that we live in, right? Is like
yeah,
if you're not doing it the right way, then we're programmed to shame ourselves.
yeah. And we're so programmed too to look for answers outside of ourselves. And that's what happens too with when I'm showing art to people. I always say, don't Google this.
Yeah.
Like before, don't.
Yeah.
I don't even like giving the titles on here because I don't want you to just go look it up, or I don't want you to like use the title even for information, because we're so trained to go looking for what someone else says about this
Mhm.
artwork
Yeah.
and when really all of it is in us already.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I'm a historian as well, and my first master's degree is actually in history, and so for me, it's like understanding the date kind of helps me
Mm,
kind of put
yeah.
the context to the work. But I agree, like that's the beauty of art, I think, is that it's there for us to consume. It's like,
Hmm.
if I have a plate of spaghetti and meatballs, like it's going to taste different to me than, and it'll taste differently to you. Like there'll be a lot of commonalities, right? We can all look and say, this is a woman in a red dress fighting against some sort of wind on a path, the barn that's coming apart in said wind, or a house coming apart in said wind. But then beyond that, it's like, wait, well, what's there, right? And
Yeah.
why is it there?
Yeah. And to someone who maybe um, got some really epic, tragic divorce, like that's gonna add a whole layer of meaning because she's got the wedding ring on, and
Ah,
there or someone who lost their house in a tornado. Like everybody is just
sure.
gonna. Those
Yeah.
are just sort of drastic examples, but everybody is gonna find um, their own self in the
Oh,
artwork.
yeah. Well, and it's like for me in particular, I've lately been really drawn to red, as if my red lips didn't give it away. But part of, excuse you, no, come here. Sorry.
Oh, you're
Part
fine.
of the what drew me into this work was her red dress, because
Mm.
that is the color of the divine feminine.
Oh, is it?
And yeah. And it also, is our root chakra. And oh my goodness, Pluto is being
Pluto has something to say about the art.
he does, he really does. He's like, wow, there's a lot going on. But yeah, and that red of the divine feminine just popped out at me. And whether or
Hmm.
not the photographer, the artist thought about that, who knows? But um it just makes that beautiful contrast between the red and the green stand out to me too.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, this artwork for our art teachers who are listening, because we do have a lot of art teachers listening, is really good for teaching composition with the contrasting colors, the contrasting lines. I mean, it's a really good like
Oh yeah.
movement, good elements and principles artwork to look
Oh
at.
yeah. No, and I love, like, yeah, I mean, even just like from that composition standpoint, it's like her knee and the line of the road is a V, and then there's like an inverted V with the line of
Hmm.
the building's roof and everything. It's so good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is. And to be able to do this in a photograph, his photographs are amazing. So we'll link to his website so you can like all of them are good.
I can't wait
Um,
to look.
yeah, they're so good.
So cool. Ah,
All right. So what else are you noticing in the artwork? Is there
yeah.
anything?
Well, so I noticed like I said, kind of the lens flare, the kind of rainbow behind her, that
Hmm.
it almost implies, if we look at it from that standpoint of, if you just let go and stopped fighting the forces of the universe that are here to support you, like where would you go? And kind of that image of the rainbow is hope, and
Mm.
um kind of diversity and all that. It's like, oh, would you be blown so far off of your course that you wouldn't recognize your life in 5 years in a good way?
Mm.
And I think that's so cool. And I just also love how I'm so drawn to that one leg, her left leg, and that line of her calf muscle and everything. And it's just
Yeah,
like so detailed.
it really
And
is. I
yeah.
love that this rainbow thing, it makes me view the wind differently. The at first the wind felt so aggressive and
Mhm.
unwelcome and dramatic, and it still does. Like that pull, like the just motion I just feel in my chest when I look at this. Like it just keeps pulling my heart forward. But as I see that rainbow that you're mentioning, like it makes me um it feels more benevolent. The wind does. It feels
It
more
does.
like if it were to continue on and keep pushing her forward, like the
Mhm.
rainbow would then would stay with her.
Yeah.
Um,
It almost looks like it's like cradling her because it does
yeah,
kind of curve behind her.
it does.
That's so wild.
It is.
Looks like there's another one too, kind of 2/4 of the way back from the peak of the house. I'm like dragging my mouth so you can see my mouth.
2/4 of the
So if you
way.
look at like the peak
Like
of the
here.
house and kind of
Oh, here it
that,
is.
yeah, which is kind of interesting
That
too.
is. It's like coming out of the roof of the house.
Yeah,
Oh.
that's wild. Yeah.
This is one of those times where I'm just like, oh, that just happened in the photograph, no big deal. But then I'm like, but I also want to find meaning in it,
Yeah.
and that's
Well,
why it's so fun.
and I'm sure there's been some digital manipulation of the stuff in the
Oh,
background, just
yeah,
because I can't imagine, being able to take a photograph in that strong a wind. So
yeah,
it's kind of like, well, a photographer can choose to leave something in,
that's true. That is true.
you know.
And we know, and what I know of his photographs is that many of them had to be edited to create the
Yeah.
effect that he wanted. So he okay. So rainbow coming out of the house that is falling to pieces. What could that
Yeah.
be about?
It could be so many different things. My first thought is kind of that heart of the house, like maybe it's coming out of the kitchen,
Mm,
or maybe it's the glow of a television screen, who knows.
yeah.
But it's like maybe, and I think that it might just be something else to kind of drag our eye, because it's interesting. It's like I kind of feel like my eyes are being dragged across the
Hmm.
plane of the image, like up towards that upper left corner where it's so bright white of the sunshine that
Hmm.
the edge of the image just kind of disappears. um but yeah, I mean, it's golden light, right? That maybe it's reaching down from the heavens, reaching up to the heavens. But it
Hmm.
does feel like, it almost feels like, as we kind of look at this more, she could lean back into that rainbow that's on the front end of the wind and just be carried up to a new height of some sort.
Yeah. Oh gosh. As
Yeah.
you're talking about the rainbow pointing up to the sun and all, how your eyes drawn there. But now, so as you were talking, I started to notice it too. Like if you look at the roof tiles coming up, if you follow the line of them, they
Yeah.
point up to the sun. This branch that's in the air has this curved line that points to the sun.
Mhm.
Her
Mhm.
hair
Yeah.
points to the sun. Her arm, the belt on her dress points to the sun. Even her skirt
Yeah.
flares up.
It does
Follow that
flare up
line points
directly
to the
toward it.
sun.
Yeah.
Like everything that's not pointing down the road seems
Hmm.
to be pointing up to that sun.
Yeah. Yeah. Does she have a necklace on too that's pulling up?
Oh, the necklace is yeah, it's pulled
Oh
up
my
and pointed
gosh.
towards the sun
Yeah.
too. I'm like,
Wow.
the universe wants her to go there.
Yeah.
I'm convinced now.
I think you're right. And
She needs to surrender.
yeah. And we fight against
Hmm.
so many of those messages. Oh, I have chills.
That's when you know you've reached a good spot in the
Yeah.
artwork. It's
Yeah.
like,
Oh, there it is. That's awesome. Yeah. And I do like to kind of behind her, the tree is this it is this blur in the wind, but it's like you can see the blue peeking out between the branches. And it's it kind of has that impressionist vibe of like, ooh,
Yeah.
I understand what you're communicating here. That's so cool.
Oh,
Yeah,
excellent.
I think it might be about surrender.
Yep.
That's
I
awesome.
think so too.
Yeah.
That word, even before you said it, I was like, that word just kept bubbling up, and I'm
Yeah.
so we've got to. This is where if you were in the Art Connection circle, I would ask the participants to journal. So this is for you listeners. I haven't done this yet on the podcast, but now I'm feeling called to do that. Is
Love it.
to after this episode, take some time and kind of free write on the topic of surrender and where in your life do you feel like you um, may what are you being called to that you're resisting and what can you surrender to get you to that
Yeah.
sunlight place.
Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna do that too.
Do you have any thoughts that would come to your head of what you think you would need to surrender to?
It's so interesting that you asked that because the past week or so, I've really been, and it doesn't sound like it's surrendering to it, but it really is kind of surrendering to my own innate intuition and my own innate magic. And you would think I would already do that. And I do to a point, but it's like with anything, right? It's like if you're learning a language, you get to a point where you need to learn, the next step up.
Yeah.
Right. And so I have been feeling, called to this next step up. And it's just a matter of surrendering to the guidance that I'm getting within my own heart and the things that are around me, the universe blowing me in a direction.
Yeah.
So, and letting go of the what ifs and also the idea that it's like, oh, I don't have time or energy for that. It's like, no, I totally do. And as I surrender and I stop fighting,
Yeah.
going inward and really stoking those creative fires, I am more energized than ever.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. When I'm at that place of excitement and intuition and where it feels right, I have boundless energy. I have energy for days to do what I want to do. It's
Yeah.
when I'm resisting, it's when I'm fighting it that I
Mhm.
don't have the energy that I need for
Yeah,
the work that I'm doing.
absolutely. So agree.
Love it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I feel like we arrived at a really solid place
I think so too.
to
Yeah.
end this. Is there anything left unsaid, do you think that you're
I don't think so. I would just
okay.
encourage everyone to go check this out
Yeah.
because I mean, I feel like you could just really sit in front of it and just journal about
Yeah.
surrender and just everything else that comes through.
Awesome.
It's really cool.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Can you tell us how to find you online so that if anybody's interested in learning more about your work, that they know that they go to the right place?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can always find me on Instagram at the Megan Winkler, and it's MEGAN. You can also find me at meganwinkler.com or goodbusinesswitch.com.
Wonderful. And do you have a membership?
I will have a co-working membership. I'm launching it very soon. Actually, it's going up this week. So probably by the time this comes
It'll be
out.
next Thursday when this, yeah,
Yeah,
Thursday
yeah.
yeah.
So I have started the co-working coven. It's the Good Business, which is co-working coven. And it is a co-working membership that is specifically for spiritual folks. You don't have to be witchy to be in it. But each day has a certain energy. And so we're really aligning with that. And we're going to have co-working sessions each week and throughout the month that are really focused on the energy of the day of the week. So every month we have a Thursday session where we are doing all our finances because Thursday is ruled by Jupiter and Jupiter really aligns with business goals and finances. So we're going to balance our books and everything together in community. We don't have to share the details of said books, but we're doing it all together at the same time to create just a supportive way to stay accountable to ourselves and to our own desires and businesses. So it's really cool.
Awesome. Well, we will put all of the links to that in the show notes. Thank you again, Megan, for joining me today.
Thank you, Cindy. It has been a joy. This is so much fun.
Yes. All right. Thank you again to Megan for that amazing conversation. And now I will tell you the rest of the story about what happened when I showed this to the Art and Self Connection Circle. So the most fascinating thing that happened in the Art and Self Connection Circle was that someone noticed that there was a track going from the woman's foot forward as if she is being dragged backwards. So you can see this kind of trail from her foot in the dirt. So, the entire conversation with Megan, we did talk about, is she being pulled back or is she being pushed forward? And we ultimately liked the interpretation of her being pushed forward. But when you add the addition of that track in the dirt, it changes a lot of things, because then you see, oh, well, she was first forward and now she is back. And it's really interesting to me to think about how that changes everything that we just talked about. And now part of me is like, oh, should I even tell you this story? Because now you wasted your time sitting here listening to us interpret this work of art, and we are missing this key piece of information. But I don't believe that to be true. I believe that process of us talking about the work of art together, us finding personal meaning in it, of talking about symbolism, talking about feelings, talking about humanity and society, and all of that, wonderful things that happen when you have a deep conversation with someone. Of course, that was not time wasted, but it really does show you what can happen when when you enter into community with someone else regarding a work of art, and that you really spend time with it, dissecting it, and talking about it with someone else. Now, you heard me mention in the interview with Megan that if this were in the Art and Self-Connection Circle, I would ask you this question for you to journal on. And if that kind of piqued your interest a little bit, if that's something that you feel like you would benefit from, you want to spend more quality time with works of art, you obviously can do that with this podcast. But if you really want to dive deeper into art, I invite you to check out the Art and Self-Connection Circle self-study version that I have currently released within the last few months. And what this is a independent study version of the Art and Self-Connection Circle. Every week you get a lesson, which is questions about a work of art, creative activities around a work of art, as well as self-development exercises like uncovering your values, dreaming into your vision. And then you look at artworks that are related to those topics and really work on learning more about yourself through the context of looking at works of art. And that is available at artclasscurator.com/self-study. Or you can just find the link in the show notes, and you can start working on your connection to yourself and to art starting today. I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to Art and Self. And if you loved what you heard, please consider leaving me a rating or a review on iTunes. And share this episode with one friend who you know needs to hear what we talked about today. You will find links to the artworks that we discuss over at the show notes, and you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Cindy Needs Art. Thank you so much for listening, and have a wonderful week. I'll see you next time.